Hello and welcome back to The Note. We're going to talk about the World Cup today, which I suspect many people were thinking about anyway, and in particular the parallels between performance on the field and in the economy for the Latin American nations. Now, we've had one very dramatic result so far, a great surprise when the Mexicans successfully stopped the Brazilians from scoring against them, a 0-0 moral victory, many of us might think, and that was in line with trends in markets where Mexico is very much in favour at the moment, while Brazil has fallen out of favour. Meanwhile, if you look at debt markets, if Argentina continue to prosper with Lionel Messi, there is the chance that you could, for the first time ever, see a nation in technical default lift the World Cup. With me now to discuss this and more is our Latin American editor, John Paul Rathbone. John, thank you very much for joining me today. Let's start by taking a look at the latest odds from Goldman Sachs, which don't take account of England's defeat to Uruguay, so their chances would have gone from small to indiscernible. What do you think would be the impact of an all Latin American final?
Europe has never won on American soil in the World Cup, so in some senses, from historical precedents, we probably are heading towards a Latin American final, and Brazil-Argentina would be an extraordinary match.
And whoever won would be overjoyed, and whoever lost that game be inconsolable, presumably.
Despair, I think, despair.
Now, let's see how they map up when it comes to the stock market. And this is very intriguing. Brazil's recently gone out of favour. Argentina is regarded as a basket case in many levels, and yet look at the way their stock markets have performed in the last couple of years. What's going on here?
Well, the key moment came around about here, where it became apparent that Cristina Fernandez, the president, wouldn't be able to run again next year. And with that prospect, the idea that there could be more sort of rational approach to economic policy making grew, and you had this massive rally going on for the past several months.
Meanwhile, people assume that Dilma Rousseff, who is not particularly popular with the markets, is going to get re-elected, and that's not good for Brazilian stocks.
In a way, you have a sort of similar pattern here, because whenever polls have come out showing that Dilma Rousseff might not do as well in the next election, which is in October, as people expect her to do, there's always been a market rally. So you've got a similar dynamic, smaller but similar, going on in Brazil.
Okay, this is all very intriguing. Now let's take a look at Argentine credit, and you can see, bear in mind this scale starts at 500 basis points over treasuries. People are extremely concerned about an Argentine default. What's happening there?
Well, you've got this very convoluted holdout saga where basically we're looking at the end game at the moment, and Argentina probably is going to have to pay the holdouts. But will it, won't it? The drama is intense, and if it doesn't pay the holdouts, then it might also default on its restructured debt, and that's why you see these spikes in the CDS spreads.
How problematic could that be for other countries in the region? If you have a technical default in Argentina, isn't that going to inhibit anybody from attempting to do a restructuring of their debt in future?
Well, Argentine debt is sort of a universe in its own right, and a bit like Buenos Aires, it's sort of a universe in its own right. And in the meantime, we've had an Ecuadorian bond offering, even though Ecuador defaulted several years ago, and yet it's been able to return to the market. So that seems to suggest that Argentina is very much an isolated incident.
Okay, so a technical default is actually not going to have the kind of knock-on effects we might have expected?
Not yet, and certainly not on markets. What it means for policy and sovereign restructurings in the future is another matter. But in terms of immediate market fallout, there hasn't been any noticeable yet.
Okay, JP, thank you very much indeed. So, what to make of all this? Argentina, if it actually manages to win the World Cup, aided by Lionel Messi, as we saw from Goldman Sachs a couple of weeks ago, its stock market would be a good bet to rally much further, even if it goes into a technical default. And as I get to say the last word on these occasions, I'll end by saying Arriba Mexico.